to the Emmanuel Sewing Group Hobo Bag tutorial. Emmanuel Sewing Group is a ministry of Emmanuel Church Brentford, located in West London. We love to spend time with others in our community who enjoy sewing and, as the Apostle Paul has encouraged us, to live out our faith in every part of life. And whatever you do in word or deed, do everything in the name of the Lord Jesus, giving thanks to God the Father through Him. Colossians 3:17. Links to the free pattern, instructions, and embroidery templates can be found in the description box. Let's make a hobo bag. In this video, I'll be showing you how to make the Emmanuel Hobo Bag. I'll be going through this bag using two sets of fabric. So I'll be making two bags, one with a medium gray and a floral companion fabrics. And I'll make another bag with a stripe and the sailboat print. You'll need 1 meter of each fabric, one for the outside, one for the lining. And you'll also need wadding. I'm going to be using wadding that I'm piecing together from scraps. But if you have a piece of wadding that's 9 inches by 42 inches, that will be enough. You'll also need thread, pins, scissors, a sewing machine. You'll also need the hobo bag pattern, which you'll also be able to download if you don't have it, a paper copy already. You can download, and I'll put a link in the description box. And there will also be a link for the written instructions, which may be helpful. But everything in these instructions will be covered in the video. Some optional things that aren't necessary but very helpful to have are some temporary spray glue to spray the batting onto the fabric, and a magnetic snap closure. That's optional, but I'll be showing you how to install this if you'd like to use one of those. And why not label your bag? If you have a special label, then have that ready to insert when we get to that point. Also, a walking foot is very helpful in a project like this. When sewing so many layers, the walking foot will help ease the fabric under the foot without bunching. It's not essential, so if you don't have one, don't worry. You can still make this bag without a walking foot. With your paper scissors, cut around each pattern piece. I've already done that, and mine are ready to go. There is the piece number 1 is the hobo bag big pocket. 2 is the body, the bag body. This piece number 3 is the phone pocket. And then you'll notice there are two gussets and 2 straps. Why is that? Pieces 4 and 5 are for fabric that does not have a one-way print. Pieces 6 and 7 are for fabrics that do have a one-way print. And you'll notice the difference in these is it has a seam at the bottom of the gusset, and the strap has a seam at the top. Pieces 4 and 5 don't have that. How do you know which pieces you should use? Well, that means you need to look at your fabric and determine if your fabric has a one-way design or not. The fabric that I'm using for one bag is this nice white and gray floral. There is no one-way design on this. I can turn it any direction and it doesn't matter which way it falls. And of course the solid doesn't have a one-way design, so that doesn't matter. On these 2 pieces of fabric, I will use patterns 4 and 5. In the second bag, I'll be using these 2 prints. This stripe has anchors printed on it, some that are right facing and some that are upside down. So it doesn't matter if I cut it this way or this way. Also, you can check it by looking across a fold. If it's right facing on one side, that's great, but what about the other side? Looks like we're okay here. So in this fabric, I'll be using pattern pieces 4 and 5. Let's look at the sailboat print. All these sailboats seem to be facing the same direction, but let's make sure. If we fold the fabric and look on the other side of the fold, yes, these are upside down and these are right side up. So if you fold this like this and turn it, and it's part of the design is upside down, you have a one-way print. In that case, be sure to pick out pattern pieces number 6 and number 7 for every one-way print you have. These pattern pieces are marked strap for one-way print and gusset for one-way print. Let's start cutting out on the fabric that uses pattern pieces 4 and 5. So in addition to 4 and 5, we'll also be cutting out from this fabric 3, 2, and 1. Now, it's important to know how to lay this out in order to get a lot of or not so much waste out of your fabric. And if you look at the instructions, you need to do the layout according to a non-directional print. And that means you want to find the selvage of the fabric. What is the selvage? The selvage is a tightly woven edge that doesn't ravel on your fabric. You can see it clearly in this piece. There are holes that it was held onto the loom with. The cut edge ravels, but the selvage edge does not. So you want to fold this fabric in half so that the selvage is folded back to itself with the top edges meeting. And it's important to go ahead and press, make sure it's straight, and press this edge so that it's crisp. You're going to be placing pattern pieces along this fold, and if it's pressed, you'll get a much accurate cut. Place pattern piece 4, the gusset, along the fold. The edge of this paper pattern should be right on the edge of the fold. You'll notice that this pattern piece is tapered, so it angles slightly all the way to the top. Start pinning from the fold so that you know that the fold is level. Pin the rest of the pattern. Place the strap right next to it. Now this pattern piece has a fold marking as well, and it's on the top, so this has to go upside down. And you can see now why it's important to know if you have a one-way design or not. This is not a directional print. This is not a one-way print. So it's okay that I can turn this pattern piece upside down. This one's also tapered, so just be sure that you start pinning from the fold first and then pin the rest of the way up. Next, you want to pin pattern piece number 2. This is the body of the bag. Now I have a stripe fabric, and I can see through this pattern piece that the straight of grain is not lined up with the stripe. So that makes it pretty easy. I can just eyeball it along the stripe to make sure that it's a straight cut and pin from there. Now, you know you've got your fabric is folded in half, so when you place these pattern pieces on top, you're cutting 2 of each of these pattern pieces. If you don't have a stripe that you can cheat with, it's always helpful to take a ruler and place a straight line against the fold and see that and I've cheated and I'm not even doing good with the cheat. See that your grain line is perpendicular to the fold line. If it's not, you can just scoot it over slightly. Pin this pattern piece in place. Next, we need to place the pattern piece called the phone pocket, number 3, onto the fabric to cut it out. But I've just realized I would really like for these stripes to match where the pocket gets placed onto the gusset. So I'm going to move this over. I have a line here that says phone pocket hemmed edge placement line, and the pocket is going to go right there. You can see it fits right on top. Here's how I'm going to make it match. I can see where the stripes are, so I'm going to just draw on my pattern piece a few of the stripes. I don't have to draw all of them. Now I can pull this over to a place of fabric, and I can just place these quick little marks that I made over one of the stripes, and I know that it'll match when I cut it out and sew it to the gusset. I'm making sure that my grain line, it matches up here, but I need to make sure that the grain line is straight. I can see through that, and then pin this in place. I'll put more pins in it later. And the last piece is the big pocket, piece number 1. Put this right next to the bag body. Put it kind of close to the fold. And again, I can see through this, so I can check my grain line with the stripe and pin it before it moves. There. I'll add a few more pins, cut this out, and then I'll show you about cutting out the one-way or directional print. Now that these pieces are cut out, and before I take the pattern pieces off of the fabric, we need to mark some places on the pattern pieces that are very important. First of all, we have, I didn't tell you you needed a marking, but I think I did. Marking. You need a fabric pencil, fabric pen, or chalk. Because there are 1/4-inch seams throughout this, and only a 3/8 seam in 2 places, it's a narrow seam. And you can snip these marks, but I would warn to be careful about that, because you may snip too far and in effect have a hole in your bag. So let's start with, instead of snipping, let's mark these with a fabric marker. This is a water-soluble pen, and it will come out with water when I'm finished. I can just hit it with a little bit of water. Now I'm marking on the outside, but some of these need to be marked on the inside, so it wouldn't hurt to go ahead and mark the inside as well. These marks will help you line the pattern pieces up later. So here we go, this one. And be sure to make them big enough for you to find. You may need to use chalk if you have a dark fabric. Now, on pattern pieces 4 and 5, you have, let's look at number 4 first. There are lots of marks here, and there's some dots. These are called small dots. You do need to mark those. I'll take this pen out and mark the small dot. This pattern was cut on the fold. It's one piece, but you do need to mark both sides. Now look back on the front. This part says the foam pocket raw edge placement line. That sounds confusing, but it won't be. Just go ahead and mark that on both sides. Sometimes it might be easier for the back to put a pin and then just mark where that pin is. It's a bit more accurate that way. Okay. There's the hemmed edge placement line. Let's go ahead and mark that one as well. It's a lot of marking, but it does come in handy later. So that one's marked. And the only thing that needs to be marked on piece number 5 are the small dots toward the bottom. I'm going to put a pin and a pin like that so it goes faster. Well, I maybe should do the dot. It's the dot. That's the dot. There's the dot. And the dot. So, for the stripe, everything has been marked. Now we can take these pattern pieces off and cut out the companion print. Now I'm about to cut the pattern out of the one-way or directional fabric. This fabric gets folded differently. You'll see that the selvage is here, the cut edge is here, and it's folded there, so that I'm folding lengthwise one whole selvage next to the other. The previous piece of fabric I cut was folded selvage to selvage this way. But this time, with a one directional, I want the opposite selvage edges to meet, and it gets folded down the middle. And for this print, I need to turn it vertically because this print is right facing this way. And I want, in my bag, I want the strap to read this way so that it's not, the boats aren't going sideways. So in this directional print, I'm using strap 7 and gusset 6. Now let's double check what we're doing, because this is not, these pattern pieces aren't going to be placed on a fold. They will be cut all the way around. So I've got 2 layers of fabric here. If I just put my pattern piece there and cut it out, will the top piece of fabric and the bottom piece of fabric be going in the same direction? All you have to do is turn it around and check. Yes, it will. I'm just going to make sure that my fabric is nice and straight before I cut. And again, if you press the folded edge, or press your fabric before you cut the pattern pieces out, it goes a lot easier. So I'm going to place these on the fabric like this. See how the layout will look. I can get a lot like that. This is a different layout than what shows on the instructions because this print goes vertically along the selvage, which is the grain line. Some prints may be printed the opposite way, so you just need to check. A trick is on this pattern piece, all the pattern pieces, the grain line has an arrow. There's a T at the top, and the T stands for the top. So the top of the pattern piece is where the T is, and that's the direction that you want the pattern to follow the direction of the print. So I'm going to lay these out. I'm going to square it up with the straight of grain and pin them and cut them out, and then I'll mark the same markings of all the notches and get back with you when that's done. So I've cut all the pieces out for the gray and white bag. I've got two gray phone pockets, the gusset, the strap. I've got the white pockets, the white big pocket, the gray big pocket, and the bag in white and the bag in gray. And over here I have the gusset and the strap in the white. And I chose to put the wadding on these pieces because they are white. I felt like it would help eliminate a shadow behind a dark fabric. So I used spray glue, and I wanted to show you that I have pieced some wadding to make a longer piece, and using up scraps. And you just do this by butting the two edges together and doing a wide zigzag stitch. You won't be able to tell the difference. In fact, there's another section here pieced. It's a great way to use up scraps, so don't throw away any of your wadding away. You can see here it's kind of like a little road map, 3 extra pieces added on. But from the front, you'll never know the difference. I find it easier to have a long piece of wadding and to spray that first and then lay the pattern piece already cut on top of it and then trim the wadding away later, as opposed to cutting the wadding out of the pattern piece. It just seems easier at this point to go ahead and now trim away the wadding against the fabric that you've already cut. Same thing with the strap. This has been pieced together as well, and you can see just a little zigzag putting those together. And that's the long strap, and I will cut and trim this flush with the pattern of the strap. Now, I also have cut out the blue and white sailboat bag. This one is the one that has a directional print. So I have a strap and a gusset, both cut on the fold for the non-directional part. I have foam pockets for each one, and I have a big pocket for the stripe and the sailboat, and then I have the bag for the stripe and the sailboat. Now on this one, because the gusset and the strap are cut from this directional print, they are separately placed onto the wadding. So you'll see that here I will cut away because I couldn't put these on the fold as the other, because they're a directional print. And once we seam this, you'll see why that matters. So I will go ahead and trim all the way around this and get them ready for construction.